A man from Ontario who lives in Chicago makes over $14,000 a month renting out homes in Hamilton. And while the National Post wants to celebrate this guy, we should probably be talking about why this is allowed in the first place. Basically, he went to McMaster for engineering. He saw that when you rent out a house for university students, you can rent per room, not the entire house, and it's a great way to make money. Now, let's not downplay his accomplishments. He was successfully able to get a Fortune 500 company to pay him $45,000 a year for a 2-year co-op program. This allowed for him to live rent-free for 2 years in a property provided by his company. He's obviously a smart guy, he's obviously a hard worker, and yes, that should be rewarded. But the dude owns 4 properties in Hamilton and has a rental income of $11,000 a month, meaning that on top of his $180,000 a year salary, he's making $130,000 in rent. And also, may I remind you, he no longer lives in Canada, he lives in Chicago. And he's renting out 28 rooms across 4 different properties. And I understand that for baby boomers and some Gen Xers, the way to create generational wealth was to buy a second property, was to rent it out. That was also the dream that was sold to me as a kid. That was the way I was told as a kid that I would know that I have made it, because that's when I've made generational wealth. So I don't want to make it sound like I'm attacking a regular mom and pop who own a second property and rent it out to a single family. But how good of a landlord can this guy be if he doesn't even live in the same country that he owns his properties in? Housing is a massive issue in Canada, and supply is not the only way to solve the problem, because if we create more supply, that doesn't mean it's going to get into the hands of the people who need it. It might get bought up by investors like this guy. It might get bought up by multinational corporations who will then rent it to average Canadians. We need to introduce rent control, and we need to introduce property control. There is no reason why one person should be renting out 28 different units. Just like there is no reason why a multi-million-dollar corporation should own dozens, if not hundreds of units. All of the housing stock that's currently being underutilized or is currently being price gouged in the rental market, if we were to release that, it would not only lower the cost of housing by literally increasing supply on the market, but it would also decrease the cost of rent, which would actually help the average Canadian and would also help Canadians who don't have enough money to buy their own home. Rent is extremely high right now because people are looking at it as a lucrative opportunity to squeeze out money from the lower classes. We need to allow people to simply live and survive. And I want to make this clear, I don't want it to sound like I'm attacking this guy. He's probably just doing what he was told to do his whole life. He saw an opportunity and he took it. But we shouldn't be creating those opportunities, not for individuals to own 20 properties and not for multi-million-dollar corporations to own hundreds.